Some people think that there's
absolutely nothing
special about this headphone. I disagree. The Altiat Cal.1H is India's first high-end dynamic headphone. Altiat is the daughter company of Cal.1H Research, the first company founded by Omkar Chandan. I'm not going to lie, it's going to be very difficult for me to remain unbiased for this review. I've known Omkar on Headphone and YouTube for many years, originally because of our shared love of vintage headphones. There are even a couple of headphones I used to own that are presented on his channel, where he was sharing his own love for headphones before making them. So, for you vintage nerds out there, if you haven't seen his channel yet, I would recommend paying it a visit. For this review, we will be looking at the King Emerald version of the Cal.1H with the velour earpads, which retails at $450, excluding local duties. At the heart of these headphones are the stunning unibody aluminium cups, which are machined out of a single block of 6000 series aluminium alloy. While other headphones may feel like a sum of parts, the Cal.1H feels like everything is built around these cups. They are an anchor that brings everything together. They're not just a solid piece of metal. The multi-stage automotive-grade paint finish provides a mechanically hard protective coating that's equally functional as it is alluring. The rear grills are made of a perforated metal grill plate and an aluminium mounting ring where the model number is engraved. On the backs of the cups are two anodized aluminium yokes which connect to two stainless spring steel headband harps. Suspended between them is a headband that appears to be a composite sandwich of leather on top and what appears to be something like closed-cell craft foam on the underside. No doubt a combination that's designed to not only provide comfort but possess significant longevity. And finally, at the bottom of the cups is a pair of mini XLR sockets. While these are not the most popular sockets in the headphone community, they are one of the more robust options and therefore suit the rest of the headphone, which exudes heft and instills confidence. And as if to erase any final doubt, every obvious joint is held in place with hex socket machine screws. The baffle appears to be a 3D printed plastic which is slightly flexible, so it should also be somewhat resistant to cracking. Under that is the 50mm in-filled PET driver, which is surrounded by pieces of damping foam, filling the indents within the aluminium cups. In every part of this headphone so far, I felt nothing but a passion for every deliberate line, curve and screw, except for the driver, which is an off-the-shelf part. That isn't to say I think it's a bad choice, necessarily, as a headphone is always the sum of its parts. The earpads contain foam which is neither too hard or too soft. Too hard is easy enough to understand, but you also don't want foam to be too soft either, as foam that is not dense enough will deflate excessively and cause too much deviation in the relative distance of driver to the ear, which in turn will cause deviation from the tuning target. The earpads are covered in a good quality velour that I do not find itchy or uncomfortable, but this velour is quite a dust magnet compared to other velour pads I've owned over the years. I was happy to see protein leather mounting rings on the backs of the pads, not only because they are a reliable material, but also because a standard earpad mounting system was chosen, making it easy to roll your own aftermarket earpads. The stock velour pads also contain what looks like a sealed puck of damping material, which plays a part in the tuning of the headphone. My experience with the build quality was mostly perfect, aside from a small defect in one of the headband harps which had too much play on one side of its sockets in the yoke. After sending some emails back and forth, I was offered a replacement harp free of charge, but instead I ended up remedying the problem with a thin sliver of paper folded multiple times to fill the void within the slot. After a week or two of breaking in, there was a little more play, so I simply added another layer of paper. I'm not a fan of production waste, and I almost always prefer to fix things by myself to save money and resources when possible, as it's better for the environment and it does give me a sense of well-being. So, with that said, this isn't a problem I've seen recorded on any of the forums, so while I was tempted to ignore it as a one-off, I'll settle for downplaying it as a problem that I found relatively easy to fix. At the end of the day, I was offered a replacement part, so I think that's the main takeaway here. At first, I also thought my entire headband assembly was loose on both sides, as there's actually some play in both yokes, but I was assured this is a necessary compromise that is only present on the painted models to ensure no damage to the paint around the yoke contact point, and I received a video from Altiat confirming it is within factory spec on their other painted models. So, to be clear, this much play is not present on the other wooden and anodized aluminium cup models. No doubt the design is fabulous. The build is solid, but ergonomics might be a stumbling block. Personally, I felt like these headphones were made for my head, despite the total lack of mechanical cup rotation. The documentation in the box guides you through a simple process of bending the headband hubs if there is any discomfort, and we are reassured that they are designed with this purpose in mind. Seeing how much effort has gone into the design and material choices, I feel like this kind of design choice is less of an oversight or a workaround, and more of a best-worst option to guarantee longevity. I've seen many other headphones costing hundreds of euros that have failed specifically at the headband pivot. One way to prevent that is to eliminate it from the design altogether. I don't fully agree with this either, as the user is the one who may suffer because of it. The cable has changed since the release of this headphone. This is the latest version, and it has a beefy black metal 3.5mm plug that looks similar to Amphenol plugs. I do like these as they have a functional grip design. The mini XLR plugs are also black to match, but with plastic housings instead of metal. All plugs are not thread sealed, so they can be easily disassembled and repaired or modified at home. The cable is a 4-core coil with a simple heat shrink tube at the Y-split. So essentially you're getting a fairly high quality handmade cable. It's nothing extra beautiful or stylish, but I am totally satisfied with the build quality and craftsmanship. Having built a few of my own cables, I can see that this was made with care and attention to detail. It does, however, use quite hard wires that retain quite a lot of memory. This will likely be a point of complaint from some people. I also found it a bit unwieldy at my computer desk, where I do most of my home listening. These headphones don't sound quite like any other headphone I own, or any other headphones I've ever tried out. There are aspects of it which are neutral and others which are not. The soundstage is neither big or small, and there are no parts of the sound that are fatiguing or obviously missing. A quick audition should tell you immediately that it is warm, smooth, relaxed, and to use a horrible metaphor, almost analog in its presentation. I asked Omkar which earpads he thinks sound best on the Cal.1H, and he told me the velour pads, so that's why I'm using these pads and not the Alcantara. I think these pads work well with the headphone, and the tuning is really quite tasteful. Comparing the Cal.1H with my modified Hi-Fi Man HE500, a significant amount of the mid-range and bass is almost neutral, with a slow dip into the upper mids, which is where I think the warmth comes from. The scoop into 2 to 4 kHz is also something that can create a false sense of scale. This is obviously further away from a true neutral measurement, but feels like a larger sound and a bigger sense of space in your head. The fact that the upper mids are not lost ensures that things like guitars and vocals are not just still present near the front of the mix, but remain mostly natural with a timbre change that is not offensive and just sounds closer to what I would expect from a large set of floor-standing loudspeakers. The sub-bass roll-off guarantees a non-fatiguing bass sound, and while it doesn't look so impressive beside the absolutely linear sub-bass of the HE500, here's the Sennheiser HD650 for a more normal comparison. Clearly the bass is not just better extended on the Cal.1H, it is very thick and lush for an open-back dynamic headphone. Of course, this level of warmth might be overwhelming for some, and the slight lack of energy around 10 kHz will convince others that this headphone is lacking detail or sparkle, but what you get is a well-crafted sound that I think excels especially on lower volumes. And no, this isn't a joke about it being for the best if no one listens to it. The Cal.1H is just great for quieter, calm, relaxed listening. And since I've owned it, I've barely had any reason or desire to use my other headphones. Despite the heavy solid metal cups, I can leave this on all day and listen all day without any discomfort or fatigue. A long time ago, at the start of my headphone journey, I used to think that headphones were primarily something to listen to music with. But in the past few years, I have changed my mind. Firstly, headphones are a human interface and something you wear. It doesn't matter how great they sound if you don't enjoy wearing it. Luckily for me, the sound profile is just as enveloping and comforting as it is to wear. Out of all my spare earpads lying around, and I've got a few, the only ones I would give a soft recommendation for are the GREQ Comfort Mesh Pads, as they get the closest to the stock tuning. Just make sure that if you do leave these, leave out the stock tuning puck that comes with the stock velour pads, otherwise the sound will become darker and warmer than stock. Generally, I would also not recommend taking the tuning pucks out of the stock velour pads. I know some people will be tempted to do this to acquire a more detailed sound, and yes, while the result does indeed yield more treble and perceived detail, I feel like the whole presentation also changes for the worse too. If you do own these headphones and want to keep the tuning intact, and you do want a little more perceived detail, the GREQ Comfort Mesh Pads should be the way to go. As advertised on the Altiat website, this headphone is not trying to break new grounds. It's not a reference model or a headphone for making and mastering music. It's a bespoke item of design wear. It boldly stands out of a sea of plastic consumable e-waste. Let's be honest, you're probably not buying this headphone for how it sounds, but even then, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. For some people, this might be the next obvious step up if you enjoyed the presentation of the Sennheiser HD600 or 650, but above all really need a good kick in the bass. Between the Philips Fidelio X2 and the Focal Clear, there are very few open-back bassy headphones or Harman-compliant headphones, and these sit right in the middle of this very thin herd. Despite all that, I don't know if I can recommend this headphone. It has a slightly unusual character in the sound and some quirkiness in the build, but I think that's also what makes it so charming. Something I can only describe as an uncanny emotional response that so many mass-produced, lifeless, hydrocarbon-based products cannot hope to accomplish. Of course, you may feel different about this headphone, but this is my video, and I think the Cal.1H is pretty damn fine. Take it easy, like the video, subscribe for more headphone reviews, and I'll see you in the next one.